When Ken Pisciotta got the opportunity to purchase a picturesque inn in Milford, Pennsylvania, he couldn't resist. As an experienced chef and restaurant owner, he snapped up the business and hoped its position in the Pocono Mountains, just 2 hours from Manhattan, would keep the rooms full. But that didn't happen. Visitors were unimpressed with the dated decor and dirty rooms, and either complained or stayed away.
Ken, you're running a fucking hotel, not a brothel. It is fucking disgusting.
With so few bookings, money quickly got tight, and Bachelor Ken was forced to move into the building, along with his cat. And as he's on site 24 hours a day, he can tightly control staff, who don't react well to his close supervision.
You know what? You really need to grow up and act your age. You're a 48-year-old man. Just get the fuck out of my face.
When Gordon arrives at the inn, he struggles to find the reception area to check in. That's because it's just a book in the dusty entrance hall. He's finally greeted by assistant innkeeper Karen, and points out the filthy baseboards, which she agrees aren't very welcoming. As Karen shows Ramsay to his room, she tells him about the building, which was constructed in the 1880s. Gordon clearly isn't a fan of the traditional styling, and suggests that it hasn't been decorated since then. She shows him the closet in his room, which contains mismatched wire hangers, and a roll of spare carpet. That's a first for Gordon. When he looks out of his window, his eye is drawn to an assortment of dead bugs on the sill instead of the view. And in the bathroom, he spots a live cockroach. Not a great start. Karen shows Chef Ramsay out into the hallway where he takes a seat in a randomly placed chair. Except it isn't randomly placed. It's the only place that gets full Wi-Fi reception in the building. Back in his room, Gordon unpacks and relaxes before dinner. But the TV doesn't work, and the rest of the room is so shabby and dirty that he starts to worry about the meal he's about to sample. It's time for him to meet Ken, who describes the bistro menu as classic American food. And as a retired chef, he rates the food as 7 or 8 out of 10. But the owner admits his rooms are only a 4 or 5 out of 10. A worried Gordon checks out the menu, which doesn't seem to be classic American bistro food at all. Instead, he's offered dishes from Mexico, Thailand, and Italy. Ramsay asks head waiter James for a recommendation. The server suggests frozen trout from California. The celebrity chef isn't keen, and it seems he's making James sweat.
It's a little hot in here, sir.
You're dripping, yeah.
It's me, I'm sorry, chef.
I know, I feel like I got a leak in my fucking bath.
I'm
It's
dying,
your
chef.
bald head.
Gordon chooses a selection of international dishes and begins with a Thai sampler, which is reheated from frozen. It's bland, and Ramsay says he wouldn't give it to his dog. When James comes to take his plate away, he reveals that Kenny put the menu together and selects the ingredients, which doesn't allow Chef Seth any freedom. And when he speaks to bar manager Anne-Marie, it seems he micromanages the rest of the staff too.
It's like he's sort of cut his balls off.
Well, it's kind of what he does with all of us.
Oh, really?
Next up, Gordon is delivered a plate containing what he calls a T-Rex foot. The huge portion is enough for 8 diners, and tastes like a flip-flop with mayonnaise. He's eaten enough and is ready to talk to the whole team. Owner Ken shares that he is losing around $7,000 a month, and it's getting worse. Gordon can't understand why the rooms are so dirty if they're not being used. He tells the chef the food is disgusting, and he doesn't disagree. The rest of the staff want Kenny to trust them, and allow the team to work together to turn the inn around. Ramsay agrees that Ken is causing the problem.
You are not helping yourself. And it's not as if you're the captain of the Titanic, you're the fucking iceberg.
Gordon heads up to his room to get some sleep, but takes the precaution of checking the bed with a blacklight first. The results are horrifying, with bodily fluid stains glowing all over the bed linen. He refuses to touch the sheets, and takes out his sleeping bag instead. The next morning, it's time for a refreshing shower. Unfortunately, the shower head is installed a little low for the 6'2" celebrity chef.
Look at this thing. Oh, fuck me. It's like being in Danny DeVito's house.
Complaining that he feels dirtier after the shower than he had before, he decides it's time for the staff to understand how unhappy customers are with their low standards. He's invited all the guests from the previous night to meet with them, and they list their complaints, from ineffective plumbing to bug infestations and old, uncomfortable beds. none of the visitors would choose to stay at the inn again. And it's time to share the blacklight findings with the owner and managers. They are shocked and embarrassed by the state of the bed. Ken seems genuinely shaken by the inn's sanitation standards and is ready to get to work. They begin by cleaning the building, top to bottom. With all hands on deck, Gordon takes the bedding to be laundered himself.
It's pretty rancid, so be careful. Careful you don't catch anything.
When he returns, the inn is already beginning to look a lot fresher. He heads back to the kitchen, where he finds a number of handwritten signs threatening staff with being fired if they touch pens, biscuits, or office equipment. When Gordon confronts Ken, he admits he is worried about staff taking advantage of him. But Ramsay points out that good management starts with good communication, which certainly doesn't seem to be happening here. Instead, he feels that the inn owner is bullying them. Gordon sets up a staff meeting, complete with a monitor for Ken to watch in the next room. The team admits that the notes, which they call Kenny's nastygrams, are degrading and passive-aggressive. The staff are discouraged and have lost their passion for their jobs. Describing Ken as a spirit sucker, the micromanagement has pushed them too far. When Ken reveals he watched the meeting, the staff are unsettled, but he goes on to apologize for his behavior. Gordon wants to empower the team once again and get Ken to show he has faith in them as individuals. Ramsay visits Ken in his room at the inn and hears that the owner borrowed money from his brother and mother to buy the business. They supported him unquestioningly, putting their homes at risk if he fails. Looking around his lodgings, Gordon feels that Ken's personal life could also do with a boost, and he admits that he hasn't had a woman in his life for a long time, as he's been so focused on the inn. Chef Ramsay is ready to teach the team the art of hospitality, with a little help from an old friend from Caesar's Palace. Ramesh shares his golden rules, with the first being to greet every customer with a warm and natural smile. It's time for Ken to practice making a great first impression, and he struggles. He's forced to repeat the greeting multiple times under Gordon's watchful eye. But when it's Karen's turn, she nails it immediately, which proves to Ken that his staff are capable of running the inn without him. Next, Ramsay has organized a stylist to spend some time with the owner. While she gets to work, Gordon heads to the Wi-Fi chair to look at the inn's website. And when he finally gets service, it's not great. Just like the hotel, it's dated and lacks any pizzazz. With 80% of hotel bookings now made online, it's not doing the business any favors. When Ken's makeover is complete, Gordon shows him off to the team before heading out to a bar in search of the perfect woman for him. Playing the role of wingman, Ramsay introduces Ken to a group of local women, who tell him they have a friend he might like. Gordon asks them to invite the mystery woman to River Rock Inn the next night, and leaves Ken to enjoy their attention without him. Gordon's team has worked through the night to transform the inn, and the next morning he's ready to show them the results. He begins with a new sign, which labels River Rock Inn and Restaurant as the best food and lodging in the Poconos. Inside, the bedrooms have been modernized, with the chintzy wallpaper replaced by clean, gray walls. The bedrooms are still rustic and traditional, but have been given a contemporary finish. The broken TV has been replaced with a flat screen, and brand new bedding and mattresses give guests the peace of mind that they are sleeping on something clean and fresh. The Wi-Fi router has also been updated, so guests can get online from the comfort of their rooms, instead of a single chair in the corridor. Downstairs, he has created a check-in area with tea, coffee, and no booking folder. Instead, guests will be checked in online. In the dining room, Gordon has removed the linen to reveal the natural wooden tables that were concealed underneath. The restaurant is ready for a relaunch of its own, with Chef Seth in full control. As Ramsay packs to leave, he's convinced the training and advice Ken has received will make him a better owner. On his way out, he bumps into the women from the bar, who have brought their friend to meet Ken, as promised. The future is looking bright now that the micromanaging has stopped.
He's able to spend more time on the floor.
Salute, my friends.
Leaving time to charm the MILFs of Milford.
Hello.
The dining room has a happy buzz for the first time in ages, as customers enjoy the new menu that Gordon and Seth created together. And along with his new female friends, Ken is welcoming his brother and mother for dinner, to show off the big change in atmosphere. Before he leaves, Gordon gets a single lady's number for Ken, and gives him a warm hug goodbye. The River Rock Inn episode of Hotel Hell was filmed in January 2012, around a year after Ken purchased the business. It wasn't aired for 9 months, finally hitting the screens in September 2012, by which time there had already been some big changes. When Gordon and his team visited the inn, they transformed 4 of the hotel's 10 Victorian bedrooms, but more was to come. The team left Ken a stipend, which he used to remodel the remaining 6 bedrooms, completing Ramsay's redesign project over the next month. The business received an immediate boost in customer numbers as locals rushed to try out the new menu, even before the show was broadcast. Unfortunately, the reviews remained very mixed, and the business achieved just 3 out of 5 stars on Yelp. Despite Gordon's changes, complaints mentioned the drab and dark surroundings and flickering wall lights ruining the ambience. The food seemed to be a huge letdown too, with diners receiving bland, flavorless dishes which were poorly presented. As for the service, unfortunately it seems that was also chaotic. Customers reported long waits for their food, and some even had plates delivered to them, and then removed and passed to neighboring tables who had been waiting longer. Ken does seem to have remembered everything he learned during his hospitality lessons, though, as reviewers mention his personal greeting when they arrived at the inn. His Caesar's Palace mentor would be proud that he was at least getting that right. Several reviews finished with the same thought, that Gordon had wasted his time visiting River Rock Inn. And shockingly, more than one also mentioned that Ken had been overheard slamming Gordon's ability as a chef. In fact, Ken was so unimpressed by Chef Ramsay's skills in the kitchen that he made a big change almost immediately after his advisor left. He scrapped the American dishes from the new menu and reverted back to the old international mix that Gordon had hated. And it wasn't just the menu that Ken was unimpressed with. He also wasn't a big fan of the remodeling project, which he thought was too gray. He admitted to changing back to more historic room themes following customer requests. Despite the episode airing late in 2012, by 2013, the business was in trouble. Ken was trying to run the kitchen as well as front of house, and the new customers weren't outnumbering the guests that Ken was convinced had been put off by Gordon's negative comments on the show. The winter of 2013 was particularly difficult for River Rock Inn, and in February 2014, the business temporarily closed. At this time, the building underwent a renovation, with new paintwork and carpeting throughout, and it reopened in April of that year. But there had been a significant change in management. Ken had taken on 2 partners to help him run the hotel and restaurant. Ken's new co-managers were no strangers to the business. They were the ones who had sold it to him just a few years earlier, back in the summer of 2011. The owners of Laurel Villa Country Inn announced on Facebook that they had sold up. In fact, it wasn't quite that simple. The old owners had kept hold of the mortgage note, instead of the bank holding it, so they still had some relationship with Ken. The pair had decades of experience running that very business, and the new partnership would see Ken co-running the kitchen, along with the original chef, and stepping away from the management of the dining room and hotel rooms. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to be a partnership made in heaven, because the River Rock Inn closed its doors for good 8 months later. In 2015, the original owners, who still held the mortgage note, foreclosed on the property, so Ken lost his business and his home. They then reopened under the original name, Laurel Villa, but this time as a casual dining restaurant with no lodgings. This wasn't a long-term plan for the new old owners. They hadn't expected to take the restaurant back on, but didn't want to let it close for good. Following another remodel, they appeared to gain additional dining space while retaining the traditional styling, and customers loved it. Reviewers reported excellent food at reasonable prices, and the business achieved 4.7 out of 5 on Yelp. The bar and restaurant ran successfully between 2015 and 2021, when yet again it was closed for remodeling. The owners took the opportunity to completely rebrand once again. Laurel Villa became La Posada and Felix's Cantina. First impressions are very different. The gloomy and dirty reception hallway that had greeted Gordon has had a bold and bright facelift. The renovated bedrooms reopened with a similarly colorful feel, but Gordon's flat screens have stayed in place. And Hotel Hell viewers have figured out where he got his inspiration for that element of the room makeover. Unfortunately, the small size of the screens reminded some people of Michael Scott's dinner party in The Office, which is set in neighboring Scranton. Even the inside of the closets are immaculate. You have to wonder if they need to advertise that because we all saw the before pictures. The restaurant serves authentic southern Mexican cuisine, along with handcrafted cocktails and a fun and vibrant atmosphere. Chef Miguel Gonzalez manages the pet-friendly boutique hotel and has continued to uphold the high standards of the owners. The hotel and bar are still open today and achieve a solid 4.3 out of 5 rating from the locals and tourists who make up the clientele. The River Rock Inn episode of Hotel Hell was one of the lowest rated Hotel Hell episodes, reaching just 6.5 out of 10. That might be because it was relatively drama-free, with the staff and even the owner coming across pretty sympathetically. Gordon was criticized for sweat-shaming the waiter, who was dripping on the table. As viewers pointed out, he was under hot studio lights, as well as a celebrity chef's critical eye. That's enough to make most people sweat. Other than that, the only standout personality in this episode was the owner Kenny, and maybe his cat. Prior to filming, Ken was positive about appearing on the show, and when 1,500 people applied to stay during filming, he realized Gordon's reach and the business potential. When filming was completed, he realized that there might also be a downside to his 15 minutes of fame, but he remained hopeful about the results. It isn't clear when his attitude changed, because within weeks he was telling customers that he didn't rate Ramsay's food or decorating advice. In 2016, a year after the original owners foreclosed on the River Rock Inn, Kenny was in a new role, but he was staying in the kitchen. He moved to the Tampa Bay area and took a role as executive chef at Irish-themed pub The Salty Shamrock. More recently, Kenny is listed as farm market manager for Gamble Creek Farm in Florida, which offers sustainable and organic fruits and vegetables. He's become a passionate advocate for pesticide and fertilizer-free agriculture, and has shared his knowledge during TV appearances. It certainly seems like a happy ending for Kenny, who was interviewed about his current role for the farm webpage.
Gamble Creek Farm is your local neighborhood farm that offers so much more than just great fresh produce. It's like a dream come true for any chef to have products like this right at your doorstep. Yeah, fresh pasta's also here. From an Italian guy, it's my favorite. I've been cooking for over 40 years now. I found my dream job.
But with all Gordon's efforts as a wingman, did Kenny finally get the girl? Well, the short answer is that we don't know. Apparently, he called the mystery woman he was trying to impress at the River Rock Inn relaunch, but he remained tight-lipped about what happened next. We wish everyone who appeared in the episode the best of luck for the future.